Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is May 15th, Saturday. Happy weekend to everybody and greetings to all of you out there. First, let's take a look at our space weather news. Right now, our solar wind speeds have kind of died down to 425.3 kilometers per second with a density of 3.4. Taking a look at our sun, and we have two sunspots to speak of still. AR 2822 and AR 2823. Both of them are weak sunspots. Right now, the two combining a sunspot number of 24. So about as good as right now the average sunspot number for two sunspot groupings that you would see in a solar minimum period. Our cosmic radiation dosage rate is at 8.9%. That's a 0.4% increase in the past 48 hours. That is also near solar minimum average numbers. Again, during solar minimum, we saw cosmic radiation dosage rates at 9.5 to about 11.5 during the deeper part of our solar minimum, which we are now, moving out of, heading into solar cycle 25 and its maximum in 2025. But solar cycle 25 has been a slow one. Now, we do have two sunspots right now. They are not naming the one that is just below that coronal hole that is turning Earth facing. If you notice it, it's decaying as it turns toward Earth, and it kind of fizzles out. So now we're watching another region in the southern eastern limb is now turning towards Earth facing, and then there's another one behind the eastern limb on the northern side, which we'll show you here in a minute. Couple of things to mention as well. A very small CME, it looks like magnetic filament eruption, happened a little while back. Nothing, any word yet on exactly what the impact from that could be, but I will say that we are going to, because of the coronal hole, Earth facing right now that we're seeing, the width of this could be a decent little punch here. And also, with this magnetic filament release, that also could be interesting, as they might both, the solar wind and this magnetic release here, could impact our magnetosphere at the same time. So that's why there's two dates here, May 18th, May 19th, for a G2 storm watch. And I say this because the G3 caught us off guard. This time we have conditions that would show us ahead of time that we could be looking at least a G2 storm, but nonetheless a G1 is definitely imminent from this particular situation that we're looking at, as this coronal hole has just now turned Earth facing, and KP indices are at a 1 with the 24-hour max of a 3. So y'all know what that means when we have KP indices this low with an Earth-facing coronal hole just now beginning. So expect in the next 36 to 72 hours possibility of a 6.8 to around 7.2 earthquake. And I'm making this a little bit higher because of the possibility that we might see a solar storm, and it might kind of just jolt the magnetosphere to where it does cause seismic activity. And we'll get more into that here in a minute, because we have a few things to talk about that are seismic related. In fact, let's go ahead and go over to the grandsolarminimum.com and check out our space weather section. Bear with me, folks. Okay, so here we go. It's always something, right? Hopefully the audio is not messing up. Usually we are having a problem with that messing up as we switched over to the next scene. So hopefully we are not hearing any issues with audio, as that has been Okay. All right. So let's move along. Take a look at some of our latest space weather stats. Quiet on the flare side of things today. No B class or anything today. No M classes. It's been kind of quiet since we've had the M class flare not too long ago. KP indices have maxed out at around 3, and that's it. It's been quiet ever since, and like I said, we have an Earth-facing coronal hole. So let's check out the sunspots that we could be dealing with in the near future. Go ahead and enlarge this, get a better explanation of things here to find out just what we're looking at. All right, so taking a look, this is Earth facing right here at the tip of my arrow. So anything right here is a direct hit, and right there you can see that coronal hole that we were talking about. That is just now Earth facing. KP indices are low, so that's one of the reasons that we are calling for possibility of seismic activity along with this solar storm that could happen on the 18th and 19th. I'm saying G2. I think it's a wide enough coronal hole with everything that's happening with the filament release. I think we could possibly see a G2, maybe another surprise G3. There are the two sunspots that we have, the AR2822 and AR2823. Believe it or not, this is faded out. This will not be labeled as a sunspot. We thought this could be the next sunspot. And then here's another active region that's getting ready to pierce the eastern limb. But again, we're not even seeing it on the radar at SPACEWEATHER.com. Usually, Tony Phillips and company will tell us that we have sunspots on the horizon. There's a circle, an area of interest. That's not happening right here. So where is the next possibility for sunspots? Well, it's going to be potentially this region here. But I want to mention that this active region and this active region were very similar to this brightness on the far side of the sun, opposite side of Earth. Once things became Earth-facing, it seems as if, for whatever reason, and we all know what reason actually, the Earth side of the sun, the magnetic connection, is weaker. As the sun faces more planets behind, or across from Earth, I should say. Let's just show you this map, what I'm trying to say here. And I've explained this before, but this to me is why I feel like our sunspot activity is so much weaker, is because where we are. This area right here has a weaker magnetic connection to the sun. All right? So you have Mercury and Mars right here and Earth. They are in the weak zone. Venus heading that way. The rest of the solar system's hanging out on this side, and the sun is concentrating all of its power, energy, whatever, to this side of the orbit. So when we're looking at Earth-facing sunspots, we're looking at a weaker connection. And if you go on the opposite side of the sun, over here is where the stronger connections are. Therefore, we are seeing these bright features on the eastern limb of our sun, and we think, oh, okay. But in reality, this is a stronger magnetic output because of where the rest of the planets are in the solar system. Once it becomes Earth-facing, and Earth is dealing with the sun one-on-one, well, obviously it's always Earth-facing, but you know what I mean, where Earth and just a few others are on a certain plane of the orbit here. Weaker magnetic connection, weaker output, and that would explain why everything seems to kind of come out here and they're strong, and by the time they get Earth-facing, they start to decay, just like our last two sunspots right now, which are weak. They're both equaling sunspot numbers of 12 in each active region. So 24 is the number for two sunspots. That's not very impressive when you're talking about an early beginning to a cycle where it's supposed to be upticking to a maximum. Very slow beginning, and what that usually means, slow beginning means weak cycle. And I feel like that this is definitely a much slower beginning cycle than 24 was. Just based on how many spotless days we've had already in 2021 compared to 2010, we are almost beating that record of 52 days without sunspots in 2010. Right now, we are sitting at 46 days. So we're 6 days away from equaling the amount of spotless days in the year after the last part of a minimum. And this to me would be an indication of how much slower this cycle is compared to 24 if there were more spotless days. Obviously, this was a slower start to solar cycle 25. And right now, it is proving that. So what does that mean? If this is a slower starting than, say, by 52 is the number in 2010, and we're looking at 80 spotless days in 2025. Well, to me, I feel like that affects the overall smooth sunspot count, and that's why I feel like it's going to be between somewhere of 91 and 97. I do think we'll see close to 80 days without sunspot. So the more spotless days, the lower that smooth sunspot number is going to be for the total. Right now, most of the people in the community are agreeing with 115 for the overall peak for the max. And that's fine. That's probably right on. If not, maybe a little lower. And I think my prediction of 91 to 97 is a pretty safe bet. I mean, that's not really taking much of a risk. But, again, like I said, we're still seeing minimum light conditions. And the reason why we are seeing these sunspots fade away as they become Earth-facing is because of the weaker magnetic connection on this side of the plane. Over here, everybody's hanging out. The sun is concentrating all of its output here. Stronger magnetic connection. Also, sunspots are staying alive a little longer on this side. Not so much over here where nothing's happening, really. So, does that mean here soon as Earth continues its path around the sun? Yes. We eventually will see more sunspots, and they will hold up. And that is possible here within the next month to 2.5 months before we start to see that big increase of sunspot activity as we start to orbit towards where the rest of the solar system is hanging out right now. We will see an improvement on sunspot activity as far as that goes. But nonetheless, solar cycle 25 is showing us a weak start so far. All right, so tonight I wanted to do something a little different. A little Grand Solar Minimum 101, because a lot of people out there are new. We've noticed here lately that we have a lot of new subscribers, and we kind of want to give people the just quick 101 of basics of what people are thinking right now. A lot of mainstream media is starting to show things that are Grand Solar Minimum related, but they are going to blame you for the climate change. And I'll get into that too, because Mari has a brilliant situation on Facebook going on. But I want to read a little bit of this to you guys. This is written by John Maunder. I don't know if he has any relation to this, but it says here, the Maunder Minimum is the name given to a period from 1645 to 1715 when the number of sunspots, storms on the sun, became almost zero. This period is named after a solar astronomer Edward Walter Maunder, 1851 to 1928, who was working at the Royal Observatory at Greenwich when he discovered the dearth of sunspots during the period. During one 30-year period within the Maunder Minimum, there were only about 50 sunspots compared with a more typical 40,000 sunspots. Maunder was a driving force in the foundation of British Astronomical Association. My goodness, I'll try to talk tonight. A fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society. The sun was well observed during the period of the Maunder Minimum, and this lack of sunspots is well documented. The period of solar activity corresponded to a climate period called the Little Ice Age, when in Europe rivers that were normally ice-free froze and snowfields remained at low altitudes throughout the year. There is evidence that the sun has had similar periods of inactivity during the years 1100 to 1250, 1460 to 1550, and sunspots generally follow the cycle about 11 years, but cycles have varied from 8 to 15 years. The connection between solar activity and the Earth's climate is an area of ongoing and sometimes controversial research. Amen. The maximum of this next cycle is measured in terms of sunspot number. This is important. Listen to this. A standard measure of solar activity. Now, they're saying it could be 30 to 50% lower than the most recent one. Now, I just sat here and told you that we are going to see a sunspot, smooth sunspot number of 115 for solar cycle 25. If they're saying 20 to 40 or 30 to 40% lower, then we're not going to get anywhere near that 115 mark. It will be closer to that 91, 97, and maybe a little bit lower. So this person here is going to go ahead and say it. This is going to be a weaker cycle than solar cycle 24. And here is his graph. This is where he thinks solar cycle 25 is going to come in at. Here's 24. And folks, this lines up with grand solar minimum. The 350 to 415 year cycle where we get the deep minimum for a while. What folks don't understand is that Zarkova's work says that we are in a grand solar minimum from 2020 to 2053. That's 3 decades. But look at the solar activity here in just before solar cycle 24. I mean, we peaked up here, had a low spot, and then climbed back up. But we started to notice the decline in sunspots really starting to happen in solar cycle 23. And then 24 became even more dramatically lower than the previous cycle of 22. So with that being said, yes, we will see another cycle in 26 lower than 25, possibly 27 equally or just as low before solar cycle 28 is where we are right now for 25. And then solar cycle 29 will be equal to 24. Solar cycle 30 will be equal to 22 or 23. Yeah, 23, 22, sorry. So what I'm getting at is from solar cycle 22 to 2038 or to 2030. Let me get this straight. Solar cycle 22 through solar cycle 30 is going to be that grand solar minimum period where we see sunspot activity. And this is where the average is. Up here. That's a good solid maximum. Okay. And again, look, guys, after the monitor minimum, we didn't recover that great. The next grand solar minimum happened and, didn't really get much better than the last max. And then we had a weaker minimum period here. And then we saw a very strong modern maximum from the 1950s all the way through 2014, really, which would be right about here. Since 2014, look at how much of a drop. I wish I had a line I could paint right here, because that's a hell of a drop, folks. Just from 2000, here's 2014. 11 years before that, 2003. I mean, it is a sharp decline, folks. Not a steady up and down. Like right here in this period, this is where, in my opinion, this is where the climate, to me, gained momentum and showing us that maximum warming period because we had such a long baseline, okay? Such a baseline of temperatures. And look at the coincidence of solar activity as well. Back here where they called it the Little Ice Age, I mean, it's non-existent. And it's possible that we are seeing right here is happening right here, which would mean our solar cycle 26, 27, into 28, 29, 30. So we could be very well facing a Maunder minimum type grand solar minimum that is upon us right now. Not a Dalton. We all thought at first it might be a Dalton. And I think a lot of the reason why folks were thinking Dalton, and let's be honest, I feel like it was a way to not come off as too extreme, too radical, about climate change and it being natural and the sun's causing this much cooling. Because right now, if you tell people that, climate change is not real and we're cooling, they're going to look at you and think you're bonkers because, well, how come everybody else disagrees with you? You're the only one. You're the very few. What's going on? Well, no, we're not the only one. There's a lot of us out there who believe in natural cycles. In fact, I think there's a lot more out there that would like to say they're just too tired of the back and forth arguing. There's enough to argue about in this time and day and age. But anyway, a lot of folks out there who are educated in the high school, public schools from the 70s and before that were taught about global cooling and natural solar cycles. So when the real corruptness happened in the late 80s, when people thought they were, slick and they could get away with it by blaming global warming on man's pollution or whatnot, they saw the opportunity for money. And I'll get into that too. I'm really getting out of focus here, so I do apologize. Let me finish up here. The sunspot sunspot index is updated monthly and is available since 1749. The last time the monthly sunspot number was above 100 was in September of 2002, and the value was 110. And in February 2014, we had a value of 102. The last time the value was above 200 was in August of 1990. So you see, we've seen a sharp decline in sunspot activity, not just here recently, but really started in the 1990s. This is a really good article that covers grand solar minimum, talks about the basics here. The one thing that I wish they could have done a little bit more, they didn't really get too much in the climate. They do say that they mentioned it in a foreword, basically saying that the research right now is controversial and it's ongoing. But time will tell whether the sun will once again go into another Maunder minimum within the lifetime of the present generation. But if this happens, we're likely to have a much colder climate for a few decades. So the reason for this babble tonight is just to let you know that there are folks out there who do understand grand solar minimum and know about the history of solar cycles. And they're also not afraid to tell you the truth, to say, look, I know what this means. This person's even very skeptical of even including this into the climate research topics. But he clearly states, if we are in a grand solar minimum, then we need to expect a much colder climate here in the next 2 to 3 decades, at least for now. But I believe it started a little bit earlier than that. Sun Live, the Bay's News First. I don't know where this is. I'd like to actually, sometimes I just kind of go into the Google Live, Google searches and try to find where these people are from. This is something overseas. So let's see if I can get the weather map then. Hey, that'd be nice, right? But just goes to show that you can't find this stuff in mainstream medium here in the U.S. And I'll tell you another reason why they're talking about it too is because of how cold things have been, the snow, everything. It's got their attention. The people are scratching their heads and saying, global what? All right, so grand solar minimum. Just an interesting story. We just talked about a storm that happened over there in Wuhan that turned day to night in just a matter of minutes, and they had 3.9 inches of rain. Well, another tornado hit the city of Xingzi on May 14th, killing 4 people and injuring 149. So this tornado ripped through Wuhan. So China's seeing some unique weather systems, and wow, looking at those trees, the way they're stripped like this has to be an E3, E4 type tornado event. This is the second extreme weather event to hit the city in just 4 days. At least 2 people have been killed after a severe thunderstorm hit the city on May 10th. That was the last time we reported, turning day into night. According to the Wuhan Emergency Management Bureau, parts of the city encountered a level 10 thunderstorm, which we reported 3.9 inches of rain in just 1 hour. Why did that happen? You all know this. Cosmic radiation, highly charged particles in the atmosphere. Here's another, I've never seen this happen before, comment. And look, I've been doing this channel for almost 5 years, and it just seems like a lot of times I see this common word. I've never seen this. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. 100 years, 150 years. There's a reason why. History repeats itself multiple times. In fact, since we're talking about that, the great geomagnetic storm of May 1921, this solar storm happened 100 years ago on May 15th. This was the biggest solar storm of the 20th century. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Today is May 15th, and we just had a couple of days ago a solar flare, a surprise G3 storm from it. Now, G3 does not do enough to cause problems, but this to me could be an indication that our sun is revving up for something a little more intense, that this might have been an appetizer of what's to come. Now, there's no exact timetable. I can't sit here and tell you every 100 years you get this massive solar storm, but I find it interesting that on May 15, 1921, the biggest solar system of the 20th century hit Earth. Now, this solar storm was a lot like the Carrington event, and in the Carrington event, it set telegraph wires on fire, and there wasn't really that big of a technology situation back then. So, but still causing fires on telegrams and stuff like that, that's, crazy, right? Same thing happened for this storm in 1921. Flames engulfed the switchboard at the Brewster Station at Central New England Railroad and quickly spread to destroy the whole building. During the conflagration, long-distance telephone lines burned out in New Brunswick. Voltages on telegraph lines in the U.S. spiked as high as 1,000 volts. Also, the auroras. Yeah, they were sighted everywhere. The big solar storm is what it was called. The outburst happened during a lazy tail end of a solar cycle 15. How about that? So the beginning of solar cycle 25, 10 cycles later, almost to the day, we get a weak solar storm of a G3. Nothing near the Carrington event, but just ironic that we've seen a surprise solar storm around the same time of this, solar storm of the 20th century. So history repeats itself. These graphs are here to prove that to you. So are we out of the woods since we have this recent? No, not at all. The Carrington event was not 100 years separated from this event that happened in 1921. If anything, we're overdue for another surprise solar storm that could cause the same problems that it did in 1921. Now, here's the problem, though. Let's say if this type of solar storm happened today and affected New York, there are parts of the grid that would fail other parts of the United States because there are grids here that control other regional grids around the country. And you blow up this many transformers because of these solar storms, you're talking years for repairs. And some of these grids are designed to fail other grids that are attached to it if that grid fails. So it's a domino effect. This is part of the awareness of grand solar minimum and things that we can kind of have to, unfortunately, be aware of. The possibilities of it. Like I said, we're overdue for a bigger solar storm that affects our everyday life. And unfortunately, in 1921, we just weren't there technology-wise. And, of course, the Carrington event, we weren't there at that point either. But think about that. If everything gets fried, the grid's down. What do you do if you rely on oxygen and your machine's broke? or maybe another set of medicine. You got to check your blood pressure, and you don't have the old school. You got the digital stuff. Or you need to test your blood sugar, but your phone doesn't work anymore. Even if you have the sensors inserted, you can't even use the. Well, I don't know. Maybe you could still use your glucometer. Your easy, but from what I understand, an EMP event like that of the Carrington event affecting today's technology would be catastrophic in so many ways because of how much technology and how much electrical circuit boards we have now compared to then, and just electromagnetic pulses. That's just not a good thing. So, but these storms can produce events that will act like that. And again, John Casey in his book Upheaval and other publications, he has mentioned this. We have to be on the lookout for seismic activity and sun-related activity being hurled our way within the next 20 to 35 years. So hopefully this channel here, we are just getting everyone prepared for those events. Now, 14th of May, we had a 6.6 earthquake right out there by Cinnabung, which, by the way, on the 13th, the day before, we had a 40,000 foot ash plume from Cinnabung. So volcanic activity on the 13th, and then also not only just the earthquake here at Cinnabung, but another one in Japan on May 14th. These, and just observations here, but these are not coincidences. We've had recent storms. We've had recent KP indices low enough. We've had solar wind speeds affect our magnetosphere. These coincide with current space weather events that could be a part of the reason why we are seeing seismic activity. And we are. Lots of it. 6.0, not that big of a deal. No tsunami or anything like that to worry about. But this kind of stuff is related towards solar activity. And there's more research out there that's starting to prove that as well. And then I've, just kind of looking around for a story here or whatnot, and I found this headline: "Crisis: The climate change crisis may greatly increase the rise of future crop loss." And I'll just read quickly. Climate change and its impact on weather has the potential to reduce its corn crop yields by as much as 20 to 40% by the mid-century point, 2046 to 2055. Isn't that weird that they pick 2046 to 2055? It's a period of time where we could see the lowest on record crop yields. Absolutely. If cooling is decadal and the grand solar minimum has begun now, think about where we're going to be by 2046, right smack down at the bottom of this low activity of this grand solar minimum. So the worst of the worst conditions will definitely have begun at this point and a little bit before that. This is the meat and bones of the grand solar minimum. So I find it weird that they are, again, and I've mentioned this, how mainstream media hijacks climate science and tries to turn it into global warming. But they pick a date here of 2046 to 2055, which happens to be during the bulk of the grand solar minimum low solar activity, where we will see a colder climate over the next 3 decades. But this is, according to 4 climate model simulations conducted across the Corn Belt, a study by Air Worldwide and Verisk. Now, Verisk, there's a link. You click to it. Usually you put the study right here. No, there is no indication of any study here. This is a website that helps you make informed risk and investment decisions with innovative data analytic insights. Here we have energy. Of course, they're using the solar towers. They sell insurance. They give you financial advice. All this stuff, building resilience in a changing world. Guys, this is not about climate change. This is about changing the economy. They are being opportunist and hijacking the grand solar minimum and what's getting ready to happen to the climate and tie it in together with man-made climate change. And these people are here to pounce on the vulnerable, in my opinion. Because when I'm reading this article here, and I'm hearing about a study, and there's no link to the study, all right? Further simulation found that year-to-year variations in yield have increased significantly, in turn reflecting a reduction in stability of the crop output and an increased risk for catastrophic crop losses. Those are major claims. I want the proof. Where's it at? It's over. That's the end of the article. Why is it that these mainstream media come up with these baseless accusations, no facts? You click on the link that you think is for the study, and it takes you to their page, which helps you make informed decisions. No link to the study about climate change and catastrophic crop loss. Nothing. Risk insights, understanding today's top challenges. Let's click on the view more. Let's see what this says. Climate change, a complex global challenge. Energy transit, slowing global warming to 2 degrees. Again, they're thinking using less energy is going to do that. Folks, there is no 2 degrees to worry about. We're below baseline on global temperatures right now. We're below baseline. Okay, they're talking about 2 degrees Celsius. We didn't even get that high during the El Nino of 2015. It flirted with 1.5, but it quickly receded. And it's continuing to cool. But I just think it's so great how the science is settled, right? And these people are allowed to post irresponsible information. And then Mari, for the first time in I don't know how long, months, where she has been not allowed to post anything on our Facebook group. She is the author of this page, the creator of it, the sole admin of it, and is not allowed to post on it for several months. And finally, she has been let out of Facebook jail. But here's what they do to her. Here's what they do to her. They send her this climate science information, facts about climate change. The cause of climate change is widely agreed upon in the scientific community. Oh yeah? Is that so? The cost of renewable energy is dropping rapidly. Really? And then this is my favorite one. This is what ices it. Overall, polar bear populations are declining because of global warming. Oh boy. Yeah. Yikes. Overall, polar bear populations are declining because of global warming. In fact, polar bear populations are up 400% from 1958. Or wait, I'm sorry, it was in the 70s. Population of 5,800 polar bears estimated in the 70s. Today, we stand somewhere around 31,000 and growing. Now, you tell me how we're having problems with the polar bear population when we have more than quadrupled our original total of polar bears. Back in a colder climate, I might add, folks, 50s, 60s, and 70s, we saw some lower solar activity back then as well, and we had some pretty cold winters in those decades. So we had nearly 6,000 polar bears during the cold part of a solar cycle. And then we grow in population of polar bears from 6,000 to 31,000 by 2012. I think that's when the data stops. So does anybody get it that life thrives in a warmer climate? All life thrives in a warmer climate. Even crops. Global warming is not killing the polar bears. The ridiculous idea that global warming is killing the polar bears, and when you see the polar bear population numbers are nowhere near what they're trying to claim. It's outrageous. And Mari gets treated like a toddler because She doesn't buy into the indoctrinated information that they are spoon-feeding everybody on a daily basis on Facebook. It's awful. In fact, it almost makes me want to leave Facebook altogether, period. When they included this third reason on why climate science is settled, that's false. That's fake news. Facebook is fake news. The cost of renewable energy is not dropping rapidly. That's more fake news. The cause of climate change is widely agreed upon in the scientific community. That is also fake news because there are so many groups out there that buy in to solar cycles and natural climate change. There's so many people out there who do believe that, who follow that education. I mean, when is it going to stop? And then they're hijacking the grand solar minimum and call it global warming. Well, global warming causes cooling. The Arctic melting causes colder winters. No. These solar cycles are showing us, folks. Look, it's not a coincidence, all right? It's not a coincidence at all. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Where'd it go? Earlier, I lost it. Here we go. Take a quick look. Is it true that we've seen a much colder winter from 2019 into 2020? Look where my tip of my arrow is. 2019, 2020, right here. Right here. 2021, right there. I know that's hard to see, but look how, and you got to admit, 2021 was cold. Look how far down we are on the solar activity part of this. We're at the very bottom, and the temperatures got cold. That's not a coincidence. All this maximum led to more warming in 2015 and 16, and things started to finally level off in 2017, and we really started seeing the declination in temperatures in 2019 and beyond. Lots of cold records being broke the last couple of winters. This one was very notable. And with the fact that NOAA agrees that with a neutral ENSO, we could see La Nina back before we know it versus seeing El Nino. So if we were global warming, why aren't we getting hotter in the winter? Why aren't we getting hotter in the spring? The entire country has been in the 50s and 60s for several weeks, and it's the middle of May, and we're now finally starting to see warmer temperatures by the middle of May. But we're global warming? CO2 concentration levels in the atmosphere were at 416 parts per million during the COVID apocalypse. Today, they are at 417 parts per million. Post-COVID apocalypse. Or getting back to normal almost. My point is, CO2 didn't drop because man stopped and shut down for a year. It didn't drop. The atmosphere is what produces, our planet produces the CO2 naturally. It's life. Our crops need it. Our trees need it. Everybody, anything that life needs CO2. Today I was laughing. We got paper bags at the grocery store because plastic kills the environment. It's causing global warming. But let's cut down the trees that absorb the CO2 that you claim is killing the planet. Okay, so let's cut down the trees and make more paper bags that don't hold any. You can't put more than 3 items or the bag rips. So it's not even a matter of convenience anymore. It's the functionality of a paper bag is not the same. They're making it cheaply. It's like they're trying to thin the material out so they don't cut as many trees down. But my point is, why are we cutting down trees? If you say the problem is CO2 and trees absorb CO2, like all plant life, why are we cutting them down? Plastic's nasty. Okay, let's find something else to make bags with. Some other recycled material. But it doesn't make any sense to me to replace plastic bags with paper bags. You're cutting down an ally. You're cutting down something that helps you. If you're worried about too much carbon in the atmosphere, then yeah, don't cut the trees down. It's just like Elon Musk, who was pushing Bitcoin, all of it. Cryptocurrency. Guess what? Now he's not accepting cryptocurrency as payments on his Teslas because it's not environmentally safe. He has a what? Battery powered cars, electric cars. So you got to charge the Tesla at a charging station that's attached to a electricity grid. It's not being fed by solar energy. There's no way the car would get enough power at this point. So it's bad enough that the car has to charge on the grid. It drives no emissions, but it still has to absorb energy from our grid, which burns fossil fuels. Well, I guess mining the Bitcoin also consumes energy. So it's kind of like, well, what makes the difference, buddy? You sell a car that's supposed to be green friendly, but yet you have to plug it into a charging station that's connected to a coal plant or an energy plant that puts off CO2. So what's the difference if your form of currency is taking up energy just like your Teslas are? It's the same thing, right? But he pushed it so hard, probably got really rich too. And now he's like, no. I got to do the right thing, the moral thing. I can't do it. Well, and there's a lot of regulations being slapped down on all these people for this crypto mining stuff. It takes a lot of energy. But listen, it's just hypocrisy at its best. The mainstream media, what they're doing to Mari on Facebook is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. There's no facts that back this up. Just a bunch of BS rhetoric. Just like with this company here in this climate article talking about catastrophic crop loss. They don't have any information to back that up. You click on the link that you think you're going to find the study. No, it's an advertisement for this company. Folks, I'm telling you, you got to learn how to read between the lines. I don't mean to sit here and ramble on and on and on. But it's so important that we wake up, pay attention, and the information's right here for you to verify. Everything that I report on, Space Weather, go to spaceweather.com if you don't believe my numbers. You'll find it. And you'll find a lot of information, too, about solar cycles. Go to our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com. I've got a resource bar. You can go look up your own earthquake information. You can go look up your own crop reports. You can go look up your own weather stuff here. So, I mean, we provide the information. You look at it, you decide. But I can tell you this, when you look at those temperature graphs and you look at the solar activity graphs and you see where the correlation is, it's basic. It's 101. And I'm not doing this to say, haha, I'm right, and I told you so. I'm doing this because we need to be prepared for what's coming. Our government is not telling us what's happening, what's really going to happen, and how ill-prepared we are right now. You think you were ill-prepared for COVID. Well, this is nothing like the COVID crisis. All right, let's take a look at some weather real quick here in the GFS. Not much has changed from my original forecast, what we talked about earlier in the week. This high-pressure system that's over the northeast is really going to protect the southeast and keep a lot of that moisture. Look at that. There's like a moisture barrier here all in the south and the southeast. And we do see some severe weather here. We'll see some rain here in the midwestern regions as well. But really, the southeastern is going to get high pressure for a while. You guys need the break. It's been raining like cats and dogs for several weeks. Finally, some break here as far as the severe weather. Yeah, I know there's still snow showing up here in Idaho and Montana for folks that are expecting to see spring to summer-like temperatures. Yeah, keep dreaming. It's only May 20th. But we got snow in the northwest, more rain across the middle part of our country here in Arkansas, Missouri, parts of Oklahoma, Kansas as well, Iowa. And again, this high pressure system is just basically rotating this moisture around the south. That's a little stray area of moisture that is possible, but doesn't look too promising. Lots of moisture coming in from the Gulf as it rotates from this high pressure system. And look at this, May 22nd on Saturday. Good Lord. Lots of snow for Montana near Great Falls, Idaho, watch out. Washington, Oregon, possibly just a nasty late spring snow system across the highest parts of the elevations, I'm sure. Not hopefully anywhere lowland. We'll see the temperatures here in a minute. High pressure still hanging out in the East Coast, protecting the southeast again. Some sprinkles here in the northeast, but that's really it, guys. Across the Ohio Valley, we start to see rain chances for you by late May on the 25th, and then another line coming through the northern plain states by late month. Those look pretty heavy. GFS indicating could see some significant rainfall from these at the end of the month. And then as we head into June, some more light summer-like showers across the region of the northeast. Finally, the high-pressure system bugs out, low pressure dominates, and that moisture is back just like that at a snap of a finger. And high pressure at a cold front tries to settle over the northeast by the end of May. Let's take a look at temperatures now. So we saw how it's going to stay dry for the most part from here all the way into the southeast. So high pressure hanging out up here is going to rotate moisture from the Gulf, but instead it's going to affect Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, parts of the Midwest and in the Ohio Valley, and maybe a little bit here in the Northeast, but not as bad. But temperature-wise, let's take a look at daytime highs. Tomorrow, beautiful day. Get outside, folks. 60s, 70s everywhere in the U.S. Take advantage of this beautiful weather. Not everybody's going to see this for very long. Here's our daytime highs for, here's Monday's highs. Not bad. Starting to get a little bit warmer across the northern plain states. South, once again, is heating up. Northeast, staying a little bit chilly, but mostly in the 70s for you. Still surprised to see high of 62 degrees on May 18th across Cincinnati, Ohio. Daytime highs continuing to improve for much of the United States. But look at this region of temperatures. Our friend Matt Bros out there in Nebraska, 68 for a daytime high on Wednesday, May 19th. Get out of here. Overnight lows looking good. Daytime highs for Thursday, May 20th, getting a little bit better. More 70s across the United States. Finally, Southwest Ohio warming up to where it should be in May. The Northeast also experiencing a slight warm-up, and then watch out for the Northwest. This is right around where this snowstorm is coming in. There's the reason why. Look at the contrast of this. Guys, this is perfect grand solar minimum. This is going to happen more and more as we get further and further in this grand solar minimum. But this is not going to be unusual. This is going to be part of a new norm that's going to increase over several decades. Here we are, May 22nd. And just to give you an example here, 73 degrees right here, and you move about 100 miles due west, and it's a 30-degree temperature drop to 45. That's a sharp contrast of drop in temperatures. It even gets worse right here where it's actually in the blue, freezing. So almost 50. So anywhere from 30 to 50 degree temperature difference along this cold front here that we're expecting to affect the northern Rockies by May 22nd. That's next weekend. And look at that, just really pushing those warmer temperatures into the Midwest, into the Northeast. Hey, we'll take it. That says 87 degrees in the capital region of New York. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll take it. Staying warm across most of the U.S., but the northern plains, the Northwest, starting to see a little bit cooler air filter down. And then once again, cooler air making its way further south. And Ohio, places like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, back in the low 70s by May 26th for you. Now, a huge heat wave is occurring in the southeast. And at the end of the month, we'll start to see more moisture. The pattern changes here just in a couple days. And thankfully, because with this area being dry for the next several days and the temperatures getting really hot, now you're talking about fire damages and crop damage as well. So just a little bit of like a swing of extremes, it makes my head spin, and I'm sure it's making farmers down in the south spin as well. May 27th, temperatures staying very hot for the southeast. Watch out, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, all in that realm of very hot weather. Meanwhile, heating up across the Ohio Valley, but cooling down just a tad in the northwest and the northeast with temperatures back into the 60s. And then we see another cold front entering from the northwest again. And look at that contrast. It's 94 degrees here in northern Oklahoma. And you go about 200 miles north into central Kansas where it's going to be 63 degrees. So we see two of these very sharp contrasts in cold fronts. Temperature change is just insane. This is typical of grand solar minimums. We're going to see temperature swings like this. and just a few distance of a few hundred miles, if not closer. Daytime highs for the end of the month looking better. Everybody more seasonal by then. But May 31st, again, the Northeast struggling. That's when that high pressure is dropping back down in the Northeast. That's daytime high temperatures. Now, my AccuWeather forecast has us in the 70s for the rest of the month. I think AccuWeather is based on historical averages as well. GFS is painting a different picture. Southwest, it's about to get real hot. Southeast, it's going to stay hot, dry. And then you got temperatures, again, I just don't get this. And almost June 1st, 67 degrees for a daytime high in southern parts of Nebraska. Parts of Iowa, 55 degrees for a daytime high on almost June 1st. So definitely seeing a slow-going spring. Right now we're enjoying some beautiful weather. It's getting a little bit warmer here in the Northeast. But it appears to me that we can continue to see this roller coaster of warmth, chilly, warmth, hot, cooler, cold, insanity. And still seeing snow on the radar as late as into the 20s of May. Let's check out the El Nino region. Yeah, 3-4. It's going up a little bit. But, folks, we're still below baseline, and we're still in that neutral zone. So, again, what I said about the NOAA agreeing that we are going to see a neutral INSO before possibly going back into a La Nina instead of heading into an El Nino, which usually you see a cycle. La Nina one time, and then it goes to El Nino next, and then back to La Nina. It goes back and forth. This one here is predicted to possibly just go neutral and then back to a La Nina. That tells you right there, folks, the cooling. This is the delayed effects that solar forcing has on our oceans. So instead of getting an El Nino, or a weak one at least, we're just going to remain neutral. So imagine how much colder the waters are going to be for the next La Nina. And coincidentally enough, that's going to be after the solar maximum, by the way, right around that solar maximum. So during solar max, we could be seeing even colder La Nina waters down the road, which during solar max of a weak solar cycle with cooler waters is not really going to reflect much in temperatures when we get to 2024, 2025, and 2026. So time will tell indeed, and we will continue to watch as always. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in on a Saturday night, spur of the moment. Just felt need to get out here and talk a little grand solar minimum out there. Just an idea of what some of the censorship that we have to go through. Just showing you about what Mari's going through on Facebook, being told that, the consensus already said. Yeah, there's a doctor's signature. I'm sorry, a climate scientist signature of Mickey Mouse is on this consensus study that climate change is caused by people. I think Mickey Mouse is on there, and Donald Duck and a few other people signed that climate science nonsense. I think out of the 3,000 signatures they say are real, I think only something like 300 are real. So that's not consensus, folks. 300 signatures out of 3,700 to begin with is not a consensus of anything. There is no consensus in science. There is a good general understanding, and you can get close to a baseline of understanding. But there's no consensus. The science is never settled. And we show that every year when we show these new research papers that come out that talk about cloud nucleation, that talk about cosmic radiation, that talks about cooling, that talks about natural warming. Again, folks, it's all back to basics. You were taught this in the 60s and 70s, and maybe a little bit in the early 80s. Natural solar cycles, that's where it's at. All right, that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I want to say hello to a few folks out there. Very enthusiastic gardener, hello as always. Randy Willis, Brenda, good to see you in the chat as well. New faces out there. Catherine, hello. Joe Van Allen, good to see you out there. Reverend Fry, hello. I saw Knife Collector and Richard in here earlier. Not sure if Matt was, but if you're listening, buddy. Oh, there he is. Yep. Matt, hope you're feeling better as well. Matt suffered some injuries on the farm. And fast healing, my friend. We are sending positive vibes to you. Geo S85, good to see you. It's been a long time no see. Glad to see you in the chat. And a plethora of other people that are new as well in the chat that I haven't seen before. Shirley Davis, hello. And, of course, Jerome from Rochester, New York. Guys, I hope everybody gets out and enjoys this beautiful weather that we're experiencing, because roller coaster coming. Nothing real consistent for the month of May. Maybe June we'll start to see some consistent warmth. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder about that now. Have a safe weekend, and we will talk soon. Take care, everybody.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.